Hey, how's it going? So, I went to see A Death of a Unicorn, and I will say I was pleasantly surprised. I was meant to make this video on Friday, but I've been busy. I'm a busy guy, you know, I've got a job, I've got a band, I stream twice a week on Twitch. You should come watch that. And also, you know, sometimes I just want to chill out and crack open a cold goon sesh with the boys. I'm a man of simple pleasures. So yeah, I went to see Death of a Unicorn, and I went into it with low expectations. I went in thinking, you know what, this is probably going to be like a 5 out of 10. And I will say, it was like a 6 out of 10. It was pretty good. And I'm not saying it was great, I'm just saying it exceeded what I expected. I expected a 5, I got a 6. That's always nice. I'm a big fan of quite a few people in the cast of this film, particularly Paul Rudd, Richard E. Grant, and Will Poulter. Also, I don't know the name of the guy, but the one who plays NoHo Hank in Barry, he's also in this. I don't think they gave him enough to do, because he's so good in Barry. He's like the best thing in Barry, to be honest, except for Barry himself. And I just think they could have done more with him. Like everything I've seen him in, which is 2 things, now 3. It was Gotham, and then it was Barry, and then it was this. He's good in all of them. Give him more to do. Everyone did a pretty good job. It wasn't the kind of film where you're expecting like really emotional performances. It was goofy. It was kind of fun. It was a bit silly. It was primarily a comedy film with bits of violence and horror spread throughout it. And also like a creature feature because it's Death of a Unicorn. So you're not going into it like, oh, I can't wait for this Oscar-worthy performance. You're just looking for something entertaining. If, you know, it fills the schedule on a Friday night, you eat some popcorn, you have a good time. Actually, you know what, to be fair, there are a couple of little emotional bits, particularly between Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega. They both do a good job in those scenes, but it's not really it's not the heart of the movie. The heart of the movie is, look at this fucking unicorn. The perfect film for someone like Paul Rudd, who I can't think of anything I've seen with him in that was like particularly emotional. Like I saw Fundamentals of Caring, and that had some emotional notes in it, and I saw Living with Myself and This Is 40, that kind of stuff. They all have some pretty heavy topics within them, but they're primarily comedy based. Jenna Ortega I was familiar with from You, and I think she was in the intro to like one of the Scream films, but I've not seen anything with her in where the performance was like, God damn, that's amazing. However, I do think there's a scene in this film, and she, in particular, like 2 people have a very similar scene, her and Paul Rudd, but there's a scene in it, and it's a little bit psychedelic. And I think the special effects for that scene were really, really cool, but I also liked how Jenna Ortega portrayed that emotion. It really came through. Not only was it kind of like a beautiful and like heartfelt moment of the film, it was my favorite moment of the film, but also I just think it was a really good moment for her to flex some acting skills without needing to say anything. It was entirely facial expression and, you know, that kind of like tearing up that people do in those emotional moments. That really came through. There were a lot of really funny comedic moments that landed, but I do think they showed too much in the trailer. This is a trailer problem in general. Like I saw the preview for The Amateur while I was in the cinema. I'm pretty sure I've seen that entire film now. Like that trailer was like 3 minutes long. You don't need a trailer that long. Show me like 10 seconds, give me the vibe, and then go away. I remember when Midsommar was being advertised, and it was just the word Midsommar with like random snippets of weird cult stuff happening, like people in white gowns dancing around in a field, and then like a kind of like old school wooden teepee or whatever. That is so much more effective than showing me the entire movie. Lure me in with the vibe and the atmosphere, and that should sell me on it, and then I'll go and I'll experience the story myself. For comedy films, I wouldn't say they put the best jokes from this film in the trailer, but they put some good jokes in the trailer that would have been better had they been in the whole, not singled out as just like, you know, oh, look at this punchline for the trailer. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just show me who's in it. Give me like a couple of seconds and then move on. Let me watch it and take it in that way. Aside from the comedy, there is a good deal of horror in this film. Not necessarily scary horror, but like there's a good bit of violence, and there's some creepy shots and a couple of jump scares. There's one jump scare in particular that I wish they hadn't done, because it does this build up through like a silhouette, and then there is a jump after it. And you're anticipating this jump, and you know it's coming, and I think it would have been more effective if it didn't. If they let that build for a lot longer. And if you want to do a jump, sure, do a jump. I'm pretty sure the jump actually happened with diegetic sound. So it was sound that was in the environment, not added on top. I don't think it was like a violin sting. It was the sound of the creature. But I think it would have been better to just let that silhouette build, let that creepy vibe of something hiding in the shadows mount for a lot longer and then drop it, because the suspense is much scarier than just a jump, you know? The creature design itself I was super into it, right? And I think this was probably heavily CGI. I don't know how much practical stuff was used for this film, but I really enjoyed the creature design. It is a unicorn. It's in the title. That's not exactly a spoiler. But in the film, it looks a lot more like a pony and a little bit like a cat and also kind of like a Pokemon. It's a mix of a bunch of things. I assume there was some cat-like stuff added in there because it has a feline energy to it. But the way it moves and the way it looks, despite being, there's a lot of CGI there, it's pretty cool looking. It looks better at some times than others. There's a few moments in particular where I was like, ooh, that's some early 2000s CGI looking stuff. But then the parts where it's obscured in darkness looked great. It's the old Jurassic Park, hide the T-Rex in the dark and the rain and it'll make the effects look better method. Well, that was convoluted. And even though the unicorns are the horror factor of the film, they are the creature. This is a creature feature featuring the creature, and the creature is a unicorn. They are the scary part, or they're supposed to be. You feel on their side despite that. Like anytime something bad happens to one of the unicorns, you feel bad. I did. And you don't want bad things to happen to them, even though they are the scary thing. I guess the scary thing was the humans we saw along the way. The music for this film wasn't particularly memorable. I'm referring to the score, not so much like the soundtrack. That they open like early in the film with a Cocteau Twins song, Cherry Colored Funk. That's a great song. I do like other Cocteau Twins songs more than that one, but it fit the vibe really nicely. I just wish it had lingered for longer, because it's used as like a transition, if I remember correctly, and it leads into a scene in a car. So it could have like faded and then been used as like sound in the environment, like, oh, it's playing on the car radio or whatever. And they could have kept it for a bit longer, but I'm pretty sure it just cut off. Like if you're going to use a song, if you're going to go as far as to use a famous song, commit to it, use loads of it. As far as the plot goes, this film doesn't do anything particularly like revolutionary. It doesn't take that many risks. It does exactly what you expect it to do. As each part of the plot develops, you kind of know where it's going to go next and you're just waiting for it to go there. Fortunately, it's punctuated by a lot of jokes. So the jokes that land, a lot of the ones around Will Poulter's character, he's great in this. A lot of the jokes around him, they all land really well, and they do help the film's pacing move at like a steady rate, because you're more focused on just like the little gags than you are like, okay, where's the plot going? Because the plot's not complicated. It's laid out right at the beginning in like the first 10 to 20 minutes. After that, you're just letting it run, and you're going with the punchline, you're going with the cool creature effects. That's really what carries it. There's a lot of social commentary in this film, stuff about like the upper class and lower class and the gap between them, privatizing healthcare, lots of things that when you think about them in the real world, they piss you off. They're in this movie. They cover them in a way that I think is pretty effective. They make you hate the rich characters in this film, and that said, it's pretty easy to hate rich characters in movies, but only one of them is really likable, and even then you would be happy to watch him die. Even though I'd only give this film like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 6.5, I would recommend watching it. I thought it was a fun cinema movie, and I think the audience that I was in there with were really good, because I love an audience who aren't afraid to laugh at something but then don't overdo it. If something's funny, they'll laugh, and it feels there's a nice energy in the room, but then once the joke has died down, everyone quiets down and we're back in the movie. Love that. Best kind of crowd. There's not a whole lot for me to spoil about this film, because again, it's kind of a movie you've already seen in so many different ways, but it's still entertaining. So if you get the chance, go see it. There's not really much else I can say on it. It was a fun movie. I had a good time. That's all I got.